coordinate geometry, straight lines. So first thing you need to be able to do is to find the gradient between 2 points. So if I've got the 2 points 3, 7 and 2 minus 5, I need to find the gradient between these. So you look at the x and the y separately. So I look at the x's, I look at the y's, and the gradient is the change in the y values over the change in the x values. So the change in the y values is from 7 to minus 5, so that's 12. The change in the x values is from 3 to 2, so that's 1. You need to make sure that you get the direction right, that's really important. So going from 7 to minus 5 is downwards, from 3 to 2 is also downwards, which means that my gradient will be positive. If I want to do a double check of that, which is quite useful in the exam, 3, 7 is up here somewhere, 2 minus 5 is down here, and I can see that the gradient is positive. So the gradient there is 12. You can also use a formula for finding the equation, for finding the gradient, and the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you're using this, always make sure you label up your points carefully so that you don't swap from one point to another. So that's 1, x1, that's y1, that's x2, and that's y2, and then substitute carefully into the equation. Watch out as other ways for signs as well. Whenever you find a gradient, always do 2 last checks and ask yourself, have you done y over x instead of x over y? That's a very common error. And also, question you ask yourself, double check the sign, is it a positive or a negative? So also on gradients you need to know about parallel and perpendicular. So parallel lines have the same gradient. So parallel lines have the same gradient. Perpendicular lines, so lines that are at right angles. So when you're reading a question, the key phrases are either perpendicular, or the key phrase is 2 lines are at right angles. So if you see those phrases, perpendicular or right angles, remember that the gradients are the negative reciprocal. So m1 will be equal to negative 1 over m2, or you can also learn this, that m1 multiplied by m2 will give you minus 1. That's perpendicular lines at right angles. So the equation of a straight line, there are a couple of versions you have for equations of a straight line. You need to remember your GCSE version, y equals mx plus c. M, of course, is the gradient, and c is the y-intercept. Then the one that you'll use most at A level is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So the first thing you need to find is the gradient. So you make sure that you know what the gradient is. Either find it using 2 points, or that you know that lines are parallel or perpendicular, but the first thing you do is find what's the gradient. So in this case we're going to say what if the gradient was a half. You then find a point on the line. It just needs to be 1 point on the line, and in the exam write that out clearly. We're going to use the point 37. Make sure you label it x1 and y1 so that you avoid any careless errors. And then you substitute. So you substitute that into the equation. The examiners are very keen on people always writing out the equations that they're using. So in the exam, make sure you write y minus y1 equals mx minus x1 and substitute. So y minus y1 is 7 equals m, the gradient of a half, x minus x1, so it's x minus 3. Common mistake is to get the x and the y's the wrong way round, which is why it's really important you label them. In most exams, it will say to you, writing your answer in the form ax plus by plus c equals 0, where a, b and c are integers. So the fourth step that you need to do is to rearrange. First thing to do, get rid of the fractions, so multiply up. So I get 2y minus 14, multiplying everything by a half, equals x minus 3. And then I next move things from side to side. So I'll move everything onto this side. So I've got an x there. I'll move my y across, it becomes minus 2y. I'll move my minus 14 across, it becomes plus 14. So I've got 14 minus 3, which is plus 11, and that's equal to 0. Be really careful about the rearranging step, because people often make mistakes there, and be particularly careful if you have a negative sign in front of the bracket, because remember that affects the whole bracket, and that's how you find the equation of a straight line.